Hi, everybody. I have a treat for you tonight. Today we have John Page. John worked for Fender, owns his own company, John Page Guitars. John is known for being a master builder who created guitars for world-class musicians as Eric Clapton, Pete Townshend, David Gilmore, and Elliot Easton. Throughout his 20 years at Fender, he led Fenders Guitar Research and Development, directly taught, mentored many leading luthiers in the industry, and he started the Fender Museum of Music and Arts. Today, John builds custom guitars for his company, John Page Guitars, based in Oregon. I met John in the late 70s when I was hired to work for Fender and R&D, where we worked together, and I've been friends ever since. Please welcome my friend, John Page.
Who is that guy you're talking about?
Hello, my friend.
Hey, Lee. How you doing, man?
Man, it's been such a long time. I mean, we've seen each other at NAMM shows and stuff, but
even that was probably like 20 years ago. I was trying to think about that the other day, when we started this, and it's like, man, it's got to be like 20 years.
What, since when? Since
I mean, I left Fender actually, I think it's 23 years ago today, believe it or not.
Well, because I was going to say is we worked together. I started right at the beginning of 80, right, 79, 80, and I left at 83 to start Metaltronics. So
yeah,
so we were together working in R&D for all that time, And
yeah, because I started in 78, so I was there when you got there.
Right, exactly.
Left the first time in 86, and then came back. It took 11-month hiatus and work in the studio. My last hurrah before 30, and then went back to start the custom shop in 87, and then stayed until I think November 5th of 98. So,
well, like I was yeah, I know. Well, like I was telling you, I searched far and wide trying to find different pictures, and it's surprising how there's not a lot of pictures. Like I found
well, we didn't have smartphones back then.
That's true.
You didn't walk around with a camera every minute.
Yeah, that is true. But I did here, check this out. I did find this early picture of Fender. Like, remember, this was the bungalows that we were originally in.
Yep.
And, I mean, I don't know what year this was, but this was definitely not. The one on the bottom kind of looks a little bit like it did when we were there.
Yeah, except there was, I think they built between those buildings. They had put, they put covers over those buildings instead of awnings.
Right.
So you could walk through most of that stuff.
That's true. And if people don't know, it started off at the far end. During my time there, it was warranty was on the very end, and then it went through each shop. It went through not the custom shop, but the R&D, like where we were in,
yeah.
and then it moved to the drums, and then metal shop, and then there was just fabrication all the way down.
Tooling department right next to R&D.
Right.
They made all back then, used to make all the tools for the factory stuff. So
that's true. And so here's another one. I was the picture of all of us, if people can see here, because if you look, if you're on the far side.
Yeah, with the porno stash. Cool, man.
Exactly. And I'm on the very back corner with my arm up in
I
there.
see you.
You can see me. I'm like 1, 2, 3 from the end in the back.
Yeah. right behind Freddie Tavares. That's Freddie peeking.
That is Freddie Tavares, right?
Debbie and Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's Harold Rhodes right there in the middle. And this was, for me, it was a magical time. Like, I guess, because I found these early pictures of Fender, Leo, and I guess my office is Leo's old office, right? The one I was put in. Yeah, that was, and because I found some early pictures of him sitting in that room, and so that was, it was a magical time. I mean, we got a lot of things we can cover, but it was fun. I mean, to be in the original bungalows, right? Because the new factory was down the street, right?
Right.
And we were the dirty children.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I mean, I shared an office with Freddie Tavares, so it was like,
Right.
come on, it doesn't get more historic than that, you know?
I know. People don't realize Freddie was the one that designed the tremolo, which was part of creating that Hawaiian sound, right?
Well, he was actually the designer, the R&D designer for the Stratocaster.
Right. That's
So,
what I
I
mean.
mean, but he told me that, he wouldn't take any credit for it because Leo had to approve every line and every single thing. So he still credited Leo for the whole design. Obviously Bill Carson had a lot to do with it as the artist and stuff, but yeah, man, Freddie was the cat. In fact, he told me his first day working for Leo full time, he went out to the shop, which was right, as you know, was right next door to the office,
Right.
across the hall, and he sanded a big piece of plywood and, sanded it really smooth and put it on a table and tacked a piece of paper on it and drew two lines 25.5 inches apart. And that was the start of the Stratocaster drawing.
Really?
Oh, dude,
So,
it's awesome. But that was the history we were working with back then.
oh, well, I mean, like I said, I'm going to try to cover as many different things, but one of the things, just talking about Freddie, is Freddie would watch all of us all year long. And remember, on our birthdays, he would sing us a song.
Yeah,
and
many happy returns of the day.
Yeah, and he would
write the lyrics for each of us.
Exactly, yeah. And he would just burn us, right? Because he he didn't realize he was watching us all really well, right? And like I said, these are magical moments. It was having Freddie there, having Harold Rhodes down the two offices,
and Ed Johns.
Ed Johns. Well, we haven't even started with Ed Johns yet.
Oh yeah, Amp Guru dude, man.
Yeah, Ed Johns was actually Ed Johns was the guy that was in the original RCA tube manuals, right? Because he worked with designing the 6550, and he had been on early radio, and it was my joy because it was my 2:00 every day with a cup of coffee going down to Ed Johns's room and hanging out with Ed, and he was, this guy, he was almost 80, right? When I was working there. I mean, he was pretty old.
Didn't he have a Maserati too?
Yeah, he did. And he was
that Maserati in and he still, I remember he was so freaking brilliant at what he did that Leica still sent him their lenses to inspect before they would go to, go into production or something. I mean, the dude was it's amazing the minds some of these guys had,
Since we're talking about it, I'll talk about one thing. I remember one day, I go in there and the I think it was Bill Schultz was trying to get him to design some high-end home stereo power amps, right? They were on his bench. They weren't to go in production. It was something special just he was working on. They were huge, high-powered tube amps for audio stereo system, right? And he had it upside down, and he was working, and he was probing around, and it was like, oh my God, I knew they were running at something like almost 700 volts, and I was freaking because it's like his hands were all in there, and I said, aren't you worried about this? And and as he looks at me, he takes his hand and he places it right inside across all the electronics. And I was just like, because remember, this guy's 80 years old, but he's sharp.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem 80 at all. Yeah. And he puts his hands across it, and I'm like, no. And he's just smiling at me. So then I make this remark. I go, well, you must not have any moisture in your hands. And he goes, and he grabs he grabs across it and just stares at me, right? And I think
he had the best sense of humor, man. I mean, we were young guys. We were in our 20s, right?
Yes, that's right.
I mean, I know I was in my early 20s.
I was in my mid 20s, yeah.
Yeah, and so Ed's like you said, around 80. And man, he would just take our shit, let us mess with them, and give it right back. He was a cool old cat, man.
He really was, and it was I am so thankful he put me under his wing, and I mean, he looked forward to our coffee every day, kind of a thing. We went and sat and we'd talk amplifiers, and here's a guy that's the history, he would tell me stories about early day of radio and how he used to travel around the United States, and it's really interesting how Fender got him. I mean, I can't believe he ended up over at Fender, but it'd be interesting to find out how that happened. I don't know how.
It might be hard to find out now.
Yeah, it would.
Which is why this kind of stuff is cool, because a lot of that history is lost because guys like that weren't spoken to. You know, there wasn't a lot of interviews.
That's right.
I mean, lots of these cats, all we've got is the oral history of them. So it's nice to, you know, have stuff on tape. I've never seen Ed Johns on tape.
No,
and that have been, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, we're talking. He was on top. I mean, he was the designer of the first distortion amp from Fender, right? It was the 60. Was it that little one with all the?
He called everybody stupid for doing that, because all he wanted to do was create the cleanest possible amp in the world with all the headroom in the world.
That's right.
Distortion. It's like, that's crazy.
Well, we used to have these long discussions about, point to point, because he was like, no circuit boards, circuit boards. And for the longest time, we hung in there with the point to point, which was really easy to design. You sit there with a piece of paper and draw out your dots, and then go over to it was sitting, I guess it was in the metal shop. Remember the hole puncher? You'd sit there and punch your holes and
put all the eyelets in
and put your eyelets in and stuff like that. Yeah. Here's a picture of, hold on, check this out here.
Oh yeah.
I found this. Yeah. There's early you with Freddie up in the far left corner.
Yeah.
And picture with you with Eric Clapton and Freddie, and you explain it. You're the ones that are in the shot. So,
well, actually, the shot of me and Freddie, and the color shot of me and Freddie, that was my first magazine interview. That was for Recording Engineer and Producer magazine, and we sent that photo to them, or they came in and took a picture. I can't remember which. And I think I even have like the bullet bass on my drawing board there, which is pretty funny.
Oh, cool.
The one with me and Eric Clapton and Freddie, that was actually presenting Eric Clapton with one of the first, I believe the first 57 reissue Stratocaster off, out of the factory, and which would have been 81, I guess.
Yes.
Went down the Long Beach Arena. That was like his comeback tour.
Look how young he looks. I mean,
yeah. Look how young. Yeah.
Look how young all of us look. Yeah, I know.
The one in the lower left that's actually at the pickup winding station in the Fullerton factory.
Right.
And that's me, and then right next to me is Dave Mason, Steve Cropper, and then Dick Dale. And that was I believe we had a big party at the release of the 1952 Telecaster reissue, which was the first vintage reissue Fender did under Bill Schultz, right? It was kind of like that comeback, get rid of all the CBS kind of clunky stuff. And so we had this big party, and all these artists came out and stuff, and I was giving them a tour.
That's Schultz on the bottom, right?
And and then the far right, that's Michael Stevens, Bill Schultz, and myself, and that's us presenting him with the first what is that? The 35th anniversary Telecaster, I think, or is it the 40th? I can't remember which one.
No.
One of the anniversary tellies.
One of those. Yes, I know.
But it's hard to remember the years right now. So 50, 60, 70, 80. That might have been the 35th anniversary. 40. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, 35th. I don't know.
No, I understand.
Dude, the brain.
Well,
I remember the project. And Mike Stevens and I are the ones that started the custom shop. I mean, we founded the custom shop.
Right.
And George Blanda was actually the first person we hired when I was still there the first time to run the custom shop. And then when I left, Dan offered him he could either take my spot or continue the custom shop. And the custom shop really had never gone anywhere. So he took my gig. And then, so the custom shop kind of laid there until Mike and I came in 87. I came back and he got on. So.
Well, as you see behind me, I put up for you that's the custom shop telly that you you guys worked on when we went to lunch that day, and you put Texas Special pickups in it and tricked it out. And then the other one over here is the 1980, the one you're talking about, the first 64 reissue that you guys did back in this was like 1984 or something like that, 83. Which you did the reissues of the 60s Stratocasters.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this one over here
with the maple neck. That would be a 50.
No. It was. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I put the maple neck on it. It comes with it had a rosewood.
And I was going to say, it looks like it's got a locking nut on it.
Yeah. Don't look
on there, Lily.
Don't look behind the curtain. No, that did come with a rosewood. I have its neck. It's a rosewood. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Sure.
That's why
I parted it out on eBay. I know.
No, I actually have it. I have all the original parts. That was one of the things, in the where the metal shop was. Do you remember those green cabinets that were against the wall with all the parts from back in? I mean, there was parts in there from back in the 50s and 60s, and I mean, Fender was cool. None of us, if we had something that we wanted to trick out, as long as we didn't, go crazy, we could fix our guitar, and they were fine with that. And it was the thing I was going to bring up next, which was really sad because this happened, and I don't mean to be jumping back and forth and around, but as I remember things, there was during this time, if you remember this, hold on here. Now, if you look at this, that picture of me on the far right is, well, the one in the middle on the top, that's my office after the fire. And you remember that what happened is somebody came in and cut something metal in the middle shop. Remember that? And we all showed up.
I remember who it was, and I remember stopping them, and I remember going in there with a fire extinguisher to put out the sawdust fire they had started in the table saw. And we all thought it was gone and done until the next morning when I came in and the fire department was there.
When we all showed up and the place was burnt to the ground.
Man, yeah, I got pictures like that. That's Scott Zimmerman.
Yeah, that's my phone from my.
Oh, that's Steve Bollinger, and then Scott Zimmerman is behind him.
Yeah, right. But I'm saying is, that shot to the right is my phone from my office.
I remember those phones. Not quite like that, but
And and another shot of Freddie, and the shot of, I mean, it kind of looked like this. This is early Fender on the left bottom.
Yeah,
corner.
That's the 50s.
That's the 50s.
George Fullerton in the front there.
Yeah, and it looked close to that when we were there, but there was two rows. There was a row on the other side, remember, and there was two rows going down but in the big building, not.
Yeah, I mean, but you can still recognize this building as being our R&D buildings and the model shop, and especially the model shop, because the model shop had that end open. Remember,
right?
So you could actually still see that whole angle and everything going on, or technique.
So one of the things I jumped ahead was because the thing that used to drive me crazy, because my office was right off that hall that came off right from the parking lot, and every day, what was there, about 2:00, you'd hear ta-tunk, 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 and it was a cart full of Stratocasters, fully built, brand new off the line, but they didn't pass inspection, and they took them over to the bandsaw, and you'd hear the bandsaw start up. Brrr. You remember that? They would saw them right through down the neck.
I don't remember that, but
oh God, it was.
It doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It's just that my memory sucks.
Oh, I know, every day, because I'd sit there and go, okay, and they wouldn't allow us to buy them. Remember that we couldn't. They didn't want seconds.
Was that in the old buildings or in the newer building?
Old building, in the old building.
Huh.
It was the old building, because my office was right in the hallway that came down.
Yeah. Was it the corner one there that used to be?
The corner one. I could look out into the custom, what do you want to call it, the wood shop. The model shop. Yeah. And Yeah, and I'd hear them every day, and I'd go, "Oh God!" It would kill me because I'm not exaggerating. Because remember in the corner was the bandsaw,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
would just run it, start right at. I mean, the guitar is fully done, strings, everything, pickups, just like you'd buy it, and they would just run it right from the neck all the way into the body, right, and throw it in the trash bin, and they said, no seconds, because remember once in a while they would have like a sale out in the parking lot that they would
Yeah, the
allow us.
parking lot sales were great.
Yeah, they would allow us to buy some stuff that was because one of the things I was going to bring up when we were talking about Bill Schultz, which was the president, right? He was the president then.
Right.
And anyway, he would invite us, and you'd go too, because we would be invited to their Christmas parties, remember, at his house.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I will never forget is stacked up beside the fire. He had a huge fireplace. Was Stratocaster bodies that he would toss. Remember, he would toss.
Well, we all had those. That was our firewood.
That's right. They would toss I'm saying the Stratocaster bodies would be tossed into the fire, and I would later on, I think his son started making clocks, right? He started cutting them out and putting clocks in them.
Maybe his son-in-law.
Son-in-law, okay.
Yeah. I don't believe he had a son. I believe his son-in-law.
Son-in-law. Well, yeah, somebody in his family saw that and was going, why don't we do something else besides burn them? And he started putting clocks in them, and
what a concept.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, that was the thing that was nice of them, that they, would invite us to these things.
Oh,
now,
we used to have some great parties too. The summer parties.
Oh, absolutely.
Play. Everybody's like in factory bands would get together and play. In fact, we had a band called the Researchers.
Yes, and as we look right here, here you go.
Oh, there you go on the bottom, yeah.
And do you remember? Do you remember that one year you guys did Turning Japanese?
Well, I don't put it past us, because we also had some great names for the bands.
Well, because I think at that time there was like a major investor, Japanese guys, that took over a part of Fender. Remember?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Yeah.
And you guys did Turning Japanese, and it wasn't. People didn't laugh. We laughed. But
now those pictures on top, that's right outside the R&D building, the model shop.
Right.
And just behind that metal door is where the sound studio was. Remember, we had that sound room?
Right.
And then this was an amp rig that the engineers put together, the electronic guys put together for Billy Thorpe.
Is that who this is for?
Yeah, that's who this was for, and we were just testing it. And it was hilarious, man, because if you remember where this is going right out to the railroad tracks, and then right across to F.E. Olds, the brass manufacturer, right?
That's right.
So we're out there just kicking this thing. I mean, it was like, what is that, like 8 PS400s or something?
Yeah,
it was just like stupid. Oh, it was fun. That was fun.
That's it was, like I said, I hate to keep saying it, but it wasn't rough. It wasn't rough being there.
No, man, because it was like how to put it, almost the early innocence of the whole MI industry. You know what I mean? I mean, it wasn't step one, but it was in the first few steps of the youth of the electric guitar business and stuff. So it was pretty awesome. I mean,
it was absolutely
it
was absolutely during a time that when we would go to NAMM, companies, companies had their position. Like Fender was Fender, Marshall was Marshall, Hi-Watt was Hi-Watt. All these people were like, well, we're going to do this, you do that, right? And we really didn't step on anybody's toes, to really, it wasn't like that. It was kind of pretty harmonious. Nobody was really stealing too much of anybody else's stuff at that time.
I think it was like beyond that. The way I saw it too, though, was almost the ego of the companies, to say, no, we won't do that. I remember as a guitar designer, right, the humbucking thing was like, oh man, that was a big no. You can't do humbuckers.
That's right.
And then Seth Lover designed the one that went in the leads and stuff. But I mean, it's like, man, that was like sacrilegious to put humbuckers in a Strat or a Tele. So it was, yeah, there were definitely delineation lines that nobody crossed at the time, but I don't know how much it was just honor and how much of it was just, you know, branding. No, this is our brand.
Yeah, well,
You know?
it was being stubborn, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I remember when I first came in, I had just come off of playing, in off of Hollywood, off the Sunset Strip, and I said, we need a Floyd and you need a model with a Floyd and a humbucking, and everybody
Yeah.
was like,
It's like, dude,
no,
yeah,
no way.
yeah, go to Kramer.
Exactly. Well, actually, they had probably just barely started at that point, right?
Yeah, yeah. It
You
would have
know,
been Charvel maybe at that point. Well, who had Floyd first? And that's the problem we had when you came on, and that was the way the market was going.
right,
Floyd had a great patent, so there
right.
was no way beyond that. So in those early '80s, that was one of my, or some of my early projects, was trying to develop locking tremolos that didn't infringe on the patent.
That's right.
There's,
I remember those stuff on the nuts that you guys
there's
developed.
all kinds of little things. Yeah, I got
Yeah.
prototypes still floating around of little samples of stuff I was trying.
Well, before we get away from R&D, I made a note. I remembered. Do you remember Transformer Putt with Bill Hughes?
Oh,
And the
yeah, 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 yeah.
and
Well, and speaker hockey.
the speaker.
Speaker hockey down that main hallway was awesome. Or remember when he just plugged the speaker just to test the life expectancy of a speaker? He would just hook up an AC cord to the freaking contacts and plug it in the wall and watch it dance around till it blew up.
See, that's
Yeah,
what it was like at our
that's
place.
fun stuff, man.
It was. I mean, Bill. What an interesting fellow, Bill Hughes, original designer of the SVT.
Yep.
From Ampeg.
I tormented that man.
Oh, Bill Bill was easy to torment,
Oh, I mean, all in good fun, but man, I tormented that dude. It was fun.
Well, I had to do some stuff. This company wanted me to go in with them at the Fender place in Phoenix, right? This place there,
Scottsdale.
and yeah, in Scottsdale. And I came in, and we were all sitting there, and I was talking. I didn't recognize anybody; it was all new people, and they were just using me as technical advisor for the thing that they were presenting to Fender. And all of a sudden, I didn't know that Bill was working there. He comes around the corner, and the look Bill would give you,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. And that walk. The walk and the look.
The look, he would just stare at you, and I was like, "Hi, Bill. Hi, Lee." One of the cool thing was at the Fender Scottsdale is that picture I showed earlier with all of us standing up. It was in the middle room, blown up huge, right? It was on the wall.
Nice.
Yeah, it's sitting in the middle hallway between the two sections, because somebody while I was sitting in the meeting says, "You're in the hallway." And I said, "Really?" And we all walked over there and checked it out. It's sitting, it's huge. It's like 8 feet by 4 feet. It's a big, it's a big picture. They blew it up. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I made a note here, is that it was pretty much practical jokes every day. I mean,
you remember when I lowered Bill's doorknob?
No, I don't.
It was like the first, I don't know. It was pretty early on, because he was a little guy. I mean, I'm only 5'7", so I'm no monster. But Bill's like what, 5? Maybe
yeah, 5 foot. Yeah, probably 5 foot.
So I was just messing with him. So I screwed the doorknob like 2 feet off the ground instead of the normal like 30 inches or whatever. Bitch! Oh man, I taped a dead mouse to his freaking phone receiver once. And then I went into what would have been your office there,
right?
And I waited until he got into his, and then I called him on the phone, and he picks it up, and I taped it to the tail of the mouse to the receiver, so when he'd pick it up, it'd hit him and all of a sudden here, ah! This loud scream, and the phone flies across the room.
No, that's what I was trying to say, is that this was going on while we were working on stuff. This was going on constantly, right?
But what was really cool about that, and I And I took that attitude and that whole environmental, whatever you want to call it, just presence, and applied that when I started the custom shop. Because one of the reasons why I think we were so creative is, well, creative people are different anyway. And if you try to lock them into boxes, it minimizes their creative output.
Yes.
So that fun and that craziness we did also came out in what we did. You know what I mean? I mean, we would work 20 hours a day. It didn't matter because we were creating fun stuff. We were having a great time. We were pushing our minds into different directions. So I think it was a really great environment that was, conducive to creativity.
Yeah, they left us alone because
Yeah.
so to explain to people, there was the bungalows and then there was the new factory, which was down the street. And R&D, they had pretty good security because people would try to steal. Remember the guy that put
Right.
the necks down his pants and tried to get
Yeah.
out? And, but for us, R&D, our passes allowed us to walk around anywhere at any time and go have breakfast in the commissary. And so it was really cool because we could go and hang out if they needed help to look at something that wasn't working correctly for them on the line. Or
one thing I just thought of, I wanted to go back to, that picture you posted of all of us and the cheering and all that kind of stuff. Well, that was maybe the second or third time we did that. The first time we did that, and what we should clarify is that was dress up day. Because nobody in Fender wore, well, with the exception of Ed Johns, pretty much nobody in Fender ever wore ties. Nobody wore jackets. We pretty much were a bunch of schmucks down there.
That's right. There was no dress code.
The first one we did was actually, it was a joke because they were constantly making fun of us for being a bunch of schlebs, but having that ability to walk all over the place and everything else.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you guys aren't management. You're wearing Hawaiian shirts and shorts, and not shorts, but I did later.
We did actually. Yeah.
And it was like, so that was actually dress up day because there's pictures of like me and Boley on the bandsaw in a full suit,
right.
just being jerks because it's dress. Oh, well, look at us. We can dress up and, make a guitar.
We're civilized.
Yeah. So I did backtrack there, but I think that needs to be said. Those pictures do not reflect the way we looked.
No. Well, no, but it's basically just a picture to show us that, we were there. We were actually there. Yeah. Here I found this. This is a picture of you doing your custom shop, right?
That's like one of the early shots of Michael Stevens and I when we started the custom shop, and it was just the two of us.
That's amazing that you guys started, because that completely changed. I mean, there was people all over the world making custom Fenders, but it was cool that Fender themselves were making their custom guitars.
Well, the funny thing was this premise, came from, I mean, we actually proposed this thing long before it ever came about because we, in R&D, when people needed a guitar, if an artist wanted a guitar, Frank Zappa needed a couple Strats, whatever, stuff like that. The Cars, they did a lot of stuff for Elliot even back in before there was a custom shop. They would hit us up in R&D to do it. I mean, even drums. I remember, John Sermonero and Jim Gandulia before him making custom drums and custom beater bars for artists and stuff like that. So we did it, but we did it as a side function of what we did. So the concept of doing a full custom shop, it was cool. It wasn't new. It was just new that it was, well, first off, it was official Fender.
Right.
And that, it was actually a business as opposed to just something we did almost in R&D.
Well, plus you had the full use of R&D to create anything custom that you needed to create for them. Right. I mean,
right. And then ultimately, I took over both departments too. So that made it a little easier to, to cross pollinate our ideas and even take the custom ideas, put them right into the factory by going through R&D. And so, it was a really nice, homogeneous.
It was. And then after that, you did the museum, right? And because I know at home at that time, you were making beautiful wood furniture and stuff.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
I couldn't find any pictures of that because I wanted to show it, but
oh, I could have sent you some.
oh,
If I would have thought about that.
I
Um,
understand.
yeah, it was, it was just it was an outlet for me. It was, I mean, that's the one thing about being a designer at Fender is that you're kind of limited to designing Fenders.
Yeah,
And I went outside of that border quite a bit with things like the Performer and the Bullet, things that were
yeah,
definitely not Fender. And they obviously met with, limited success. I mean, now they're cool because they're collectible, but back then it was like, that's not Fender. So doing my furniture, my art furniture allowed me to kind of like take that creative thread
well, they're
another
just as
direction.
they're just as beautiful as, like, I mean, the woods and the paints and I mean, they look like beautiful guitars, but it's furniture. And
Thanks. Yeah, and actually, doing that taught me a lot on how to make my guitars better, even the stability of woods and stuff like that.
right,
So lots of times that cross pollination of mediums tends to polish up another one. But yeah, after the custom shop, well, actually, while the custom shop was still going on, I got involved with the city of Corona to try to put a museum together in celebration of Fender, basically.
right,
And that led to created this Kids Rock Free program, which was a free educational program for kids. And so I volunteered as the executive director when I was still a VP at Fender. And it ultimately just led me to say, I'm going to take my passion this way. I got kind of a little burned out of the business end of the MI.
right.
And so I left Fender and led the creation of, I won't say I created because obviously it was a whole team and board of
Right.
directors and people, but then created a 33,000 foot museum and education facility, recording studio complex. I mean, it was pretty awesome. Last number that I knew of, like over 10,000, 14,000 kids had gone through the program.
That's amazing.
So that was 98, I guess.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
started in
yeah. I
98.
remember that. I remember that because that was by then I had already left California, but I was coming back and I had seen you.
Yeah.
And again at the NAMM show, because you'd be you'd be at the NAMM show and I'd be at the NAMM show. So that actually the NAMM show was better for people like us to run into each other and see each other than it was for being a NAMM show.
The NAMM shows I thought were great were the ones at the Disneyland Hotel.
Exactly.
The early years, man.
Yeah, the early. That's right.
Those were
they were done in rooms. Yes.
Yeah. Well, not only rooms. I mean, they had the convention center too, but there was a whole lot of rooms.
Yeah. There was a whole lot of rooms
and a whole lot of hanging out in the Volkswagen vans, and it was
a lot of partying. That was. So one last thing about Fender before I move forward is, one of the things I remember is that huge warehouse that was like, it was like the ending of Indiana Jones, right? Where all the guitars were stacked up and all the parts, that were finished. Remember that huge room? And so is this true? Because you would know exactly that remember they went through the phase where they made the 3-bolt neck strats, that whole thing, right? And they had tons and tons of parts. And I too remember being in an R&D meeting where that's where they decided to shift those over to Squires, all those parts. You remember they had like tons of 3-bolt parts.
I don't have any recall of that. I mean, the only recall I have is of that similar situation was, having to have bonded disposal of discontinued parts.
Right.
Where I actually, at one point, actually went through $2 million worth of parts myself to make determination of whether or not we would be kept or not.
Right.
But yeah, I don't remember the Squire thing, but there's no reason not to.
Because I think that the very first Squires, right, I think were the parts from, because they found a place for them, right? I think that was.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't recall that.
Yeah, I remember something about that, but I wanted.
I mean, I used a lot of Mustang parts and stuff like on the Bullets, I mean, I definitely went in and you know, found parts that we had that were extraneous and added them to that. Uh,
Right.
but I do remember Squire. The whole reason we named them Squire was because we already owned VC Squire, which was
Right.
spring manufacturing. Yeah, I don't remember the transference of parts.
So, what started John Page Guitars?
Huh. Well, I'll tell you, when I left Fender, which was '98, and then I did the museum until 2002, basically, first to 2003. I planned on just doing my art furniture. I mean, I just, you know, I moved to my land in Oregon and built myself a artist loft complex kind of a deal, and was just going to do furniture because I had kind of the fire of guitar passion had kind of been burned out. I think the business end, you know, I
Yeah,
mean,
the business is wearing.
business was
Yes.
too much. And I
Yeah.
think, I mean, for me, I mean, I think if you're a creative person, it comes a point to where, you know, you either compromise your lifestyle for your creative process, or you compromise your creative process for your lifestyle. You know, you have to make a decision somewhere.
Right.
And for me, it was, you know, I think I did a pretty good job at Fender being 50-50, 60-40, you know, art winning versus business winning. But the business always had to take the lead. You know, it
Right.
had
Of course.
business. I eventually got to the point to where I wanted the art to take the lead, and that's when I
Right.
left. So by doing my own company and getting out of LA, obviously I was able to, you know, lower my cost of living.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Plus, it's
so
beautiful.
building
It's
my place
beautiful up
in the
there.
forest here is like cool. I have a much
Yeah.
lower cost of living. I could create the way I wanted to create and not worry about the business end of things as much. And um, so again, I wasn't doing guitars, and then one of the local kids saw an article about me in the newspaper and said wanted to build a guitar as a senior project. So they found me and they said, "Hey, would you be willing to mentor me for my senior high school project?" You know, and it's like, oh, you know, yeah, I don't have anything. I mean, I literally had a box this big with all the guitar parts that I had left to my name. I had no guitar parts. Um, so yeah, I went ahead and I mentored this kid in for a senior project, and that kind of started to rekindle the passion in me. And then shortly thereafter, I went and visited Fender for something, probably a NAMM show, and I just went through to see my guys. And it was like at that particular point in history, uh, I felt like, you know, they weren't building the way I had hoped the shop to go. But that's also one of the reasons I left. I mean, you know, Fender wanted to take it in a different direction. And so the combination of those two things, that kid and feeling like I didn't like where Fender was going with the custom shop at the time. I came back, and the first thing I did when I came back to my shop was put a piece of paper on the table and did the Freddie Tavares. You know, drew a couple of lines and said, I'm going to design a new guitar and start building guitars again." So, and that was it. And it's just me, and you know, I wasn't going to try to change the world with him. I was going to do the things that I always wanted to do that I couldn't do at Fender. So a lot of it was refinements of what I wanted to do, line refinements. You know, even things like reversing the angle of the pickup, or you know, just things like that.
Well,
That are
yeah,
simple.
that was, you know, that's one of the things I really noticed because working with guitar players myself, one of the things that a right-handed guitar player would do is buy a left-handed Strat, turn it upside down, because it would do the Jimi Hendrix thing, right? It would move the bridge pickup the opposite direction, right?
Yeah,
And
basically, it fattens up the high end and tightens up the low end. You know,
right,
and
yeah,
you know, unlike the Hendrix also has, you know, stringish, you know, differences at the peg head and stuff by doing the left-handed peg head. But I love Fender sounds. I've always played Fenders, but I hated that ice pick high in
yeah,
tones, you know.
exactly.
So I initially had designed these little wooden saddles called JP wood tones,
That's
and
right.
those took that high out, but they're also incredibly labor intensive. So by reversing the angle, I was able to do the same thing. Um, at a much lower cost, to be honest with you on that.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
but yeah, and it just got back to I got the passion back, and it was that
well,
simple.
well, it's obvious because you look here. This is, I mean, your guitars are beautiful.
Thanks, man.
And oh no, there's no question that people, there's a reason why you're busy is because they're gorgeous, and the woods are beautiful. I'm on your Facebook, which you constantly are showing all the things that you're working on, from the, like we are saying, like the bridge stuff, and
Mhm.
a bunch of different pieces, and they're gorgeous. I mean, even the knobs, I know all the knob work you do too. And I didn't mean it that
That's
way,
a
but yeah.
line I never thought I'd hear you say, Lee, but thank you.
Sorry about that. Anyway,
Oh, good, man.
but people understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no.
The control knobs are beautiful,
Thanks.
but yeah, here's some shots of that, and then I got some shots of you hard at work. So that was
Yeah,
there
that's
you
it.
are, being the luthier that you are.
I still do the old school, lots of handwork and pin routers and
Now that you can tell, I mean, the guitars are beautiful, and plus,
thanks.
when you put more attention to it, the energy, right? I mean, that's when you
I
pick up
believe that. I
yeah,
mean, yeah.
and
It's a, you're working on a, basically something that was alive to begin with,
that's
and you
right.
put
It
your
is.
own life into it. If nothing else, it's picking up your personality. It's picking up, although the hardest thing for me is to do all the handwork, and I still have my anal engineering, uh, manufacturing quality, or
Right.
level in there. So that's the hard thing, is that constant battle for anal detail when you're doing it by hand. But
Well, but that's the reason why people want them.
well, again, that's why I do it, and
Yeah,
that's
that's
why I do
right.
what I do. So
No, that's the same thing with me. Is if I get more enjoyment doing custom one-offs than I do doing full big production, because
yeah.
big production you get completely detached from um that. And one of the things I wanted, which was cool, is if anybody's seen this covers the 60-year book. This covers a lot of the years that we were working at Fender. Do you remember this book?
I don't have it, but that's
You
cool.
should get it,
Yeah.
because we're mentioned a bunch in it. So
Uh-oh.
I no, actually good. It's actually good. It's when I meet people, it's like, yes, I really did work at Fender. It says it in the book.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, there's I've done a lot of interviews for books and inclusive in them, and it is nice that if nothing else, people know you really did that. It wasn't a lie.
Yeah, it's a piece of history, right? You're really there, and
Great for the grandkids.
no, yeah, maybe in 100 years, if the planet's still around, they'll go, I remember those guys.
Yeah. They're
So
dead now.
I know.
They've been dead a really long time.
Oh no.
I wonder what they
So
look like now.
exactly. Well, they'll have these new video cameras, like in your in your in your grave,
Oh,
right?
let's not do that.
So hey, what I going backwards, right? So what got you interested? I mean, obviously you're a musician. So was it being a musician first, and then being interested in being a creator? How'd yours start?
It was wanting to be a musician and being a kid with no money.
Okay.
It basically boiled down to, you know, uh, old school 50s single income household with not a lot of money. And sure as heck not enough money to buy me a guitar. My dad had an old classical guitar that he got in Tijuana, Mexico. I think he paid $10 for it. And that was my first guitar. But when the Beatles came out, and I wanted to be a rock and roll musician, I needed an electric guitar. And So I would buy the cheapest crap I could find at and afford at the pawn shop. I started working at 14 in the oil fields cleaning toilets, so I could afford to go to the pawn shop and buy cheap guitars. And and I'd rebuild them. I mean, basically, I didn't like the way they worked, and so I wanted them to look better and start out being just an aesthetic thing. Didn't want it to look so crappy. These are Tiesco Del Reyes and stuff like that. And I wanted them to look like Fenders or whatever, or then it's the
That's
hippie
right.
area. I wanted them to have artwork and paint. So that's how it started. And then one thing led to another. And I started applying at Fender at 16, and they finally
Wow.
hired me at 21. But hey, one thing I do want to mention, though, you brought up the manufacturing just a minute ago about
Yeah.
better to do the custom than manufacturing. I agree with you completely, but I was approached, I guess, 6, 7 years ago now, by Howard Swimmer,
Right. That's right.
and
I talked
started
to her.
the John Page Classic line too.
That's right.
So there is a manufactured a product now. It's moved to the U.S. manufacturing as of this year.
Oh, excellent.
But that is, that's cool. So that there is a lot of the work that I have put in my designs, and that's much more affordable than and accessible. Not, I mean, time wise. I mean, and now I don't even take one-off orders anymore. I mean, I'm just building and then offering them for sale when they're done,
Right.
because the wait was just getting so long. I didn't like doing that to customers, and quite honestly, I didn't like the stress of knowing that I had all these, orders
Yeah.
behind me. I mean, that's where the creative person wins over the business. I mean, as a business, you go, man, I got all these back orders, but as a creative person, you go, oh, it's stifling me, it's freaking me out, I can't do that.
Well, it is, and first off, I'm going to say is I'm going to put links to all your stuff and your guitars and to you,
Oh,
so people can find it. And but yeah, the same thing is when I refired up Metaltronics a couple years ago, and when I came up with the new amps that I'm building, it's easy to say, well, it's going to take 6 months, and the problem with my thing was my vendors take forever,
mhm.
because I custom design each one of the pieces, but I don't have a metal shop in house, and I don't do, I mean, I build it, but I don't all the end of, and I have a company that winds the transformers and a company that
Sure.
makes I design everything, but somebody else is putting it together. And the problem is, and especially now with all the craziness, people are telling me, oh yeah, 6 months, you're lucky if I'm going to get you that part.
Oh
Right.
yeah, the shipping, the supply chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so it's horrible, because people ask, well, how long is it going to take? And it's like, well, I don't want to say a year, and I don't want to wait. It's like, I hate, taking your money and then you're sitting there waiting for it,
Yeah.
because, so yeah, at some point, I like you, I'm going to try to get on the backs or the front side of it, where there's actually product in boxes, and then
Yeah,
people
because
can then,
I mean, people were waiting years. I
right,
mean, I'm working on a piece now that's been 5 years. You know,
right.
I mean, that's not fair to ask anybody to do. Although I know other builders that are out 10 years.
I mean, could
You
you
know,
imagine, do you even care about it in 10 years, right? It's
but
like
that's
you're
the thing. You have to then make sure that you have the clients that don't
right.
care, right? I mean, it's like, yeah, man, whenever. Unfortunately, the only ones I have left that I'm working on now, because I quit taking orders, like I said, several years ago. Um, they understand it's going to be what it is, and they've said, if it's 10 years, it's 10 years. So I don't want that to happen, but uh,
Yeah,
you know,
10 years. I mean, I'm saying personally for me, because when I want something, right, I want to play with it now.
yep.
Sitting there going, well, in 10 years, I'll get to play with it. It's like,
What's
well,
my taste going to be in 10 years?
exactly. Do I even
Maybe I
care?
hate Brazilian rosewood in 10 years,
10
You know,
years. I
maybe
mean,
I don't want that tongue-shaped guitar in 10 years. Yeah.
exactly. It doesn't mean anything to me anymore. So, yeah, because I try to always, and I've always been this way, is even though I've been a designer like you are, I, I, uh, I put them in, I put myself in in their shoes, right?
Mhm.
I sit there and go, what I want to put up with this or what I want, this kind
And that's where the stress comes from. I
Right.
mean, the stress actually comes from that empathy that you have for your client. Whether the client's saying, "Oh, don't worry about it, man. I'm patient. You're still sitting there going, "This dude's waited 3 years,
Right.
4 years, and would I be able to handle that? No.
No, I
And
mean,
especially because a lot of these people I told a year or 18 months.
right.
You know what I mean? Because that's what I believed. It wasn't like I was trying to lie. It was just I believed it would take that. But you know what it's like in a one-man shop.
That's
One
right.
burp affects everything behind it,
That's
right?
right.
So
That's
one
right.
little burp in production on one item, and you just affected the other 20 guitars behind it, or 20 amps behind it.
Right.
And
That's
delayed
right.
every one of those. And then another burp on another one, whoop, there goes another delay. And another whoop, there goes another delay.
Well,
And,
and a supplier, right? Because we
oh,
don't make everything.
no.
I'm saying we do fabricate a lot, but all it takes. I just saw recently. I got a sheet from one of my suppliers saying that one of my major parts is no longer available. I'm like, what?
Wow. Yeah. And the tough thing is, and I think a lot of it has to do too, just because, we're older cats now and we've been doing this for a long time. We have things that we love, right?
That's right.
We have
That's
things
right.
that we're locked into and no, we want to use this. And it's so much a part of what we do. And then it goes away and we're like lost. Like, well, what the hell now? I don't want to look for something else. My paint manufacturer changed
Right.
10 years ago. And it was like, but hold on, I've been using them for 20 years. I don't want to rethink another,
That's right.
paint supplier and have to test everything. And it's like, oh man. So
Yeah. No, I think we're all experiencing that because we're seeing it everywhere. Because suppliers, they're staying alive. I know that one of the vendors that I'm using, they have absorbed 4 other vendors in their business that do the same thing, right? So now not only are they doing what they've been doing before, but they're also doing these other vendors that were that were going out of business, and I guess they sold their companies cheaply, and you're seeing that. I mean, like vendors gobbling up companies, and they just announced Personas, and so it's I think that's going to be like in the future. What was the movie where the only places to eat were Taco Bell?
Yeah. What was that?
Was that
Judge Dredd or
Judge Dredd? That was Judge Dredd. Where it was all Taco Bell, right? And well, the other one was
Idiocracy.
Idiocracy. Yeah, that was it. And,
maybe it was Idiocracy.
Yeah, probably Idiocracy.
I don't know. What are those really?
Yeah, that's true.
But
but anyway, yeah. I mean, God, John, it's so awesome that you made the time, because I know you're busy, and I'm having, like I've said on the other shows, I'm having so much fun because I'm getting to connect with people that I've worked with over the years. If it's artists, if it's companies, if it's behind the scene people. I mean, that's one of the fun things that this is happening, is that it's a wide variety. I've got people lined up that like that are behind the scenes too, not only the artists, but I'm trying to catch the artists that are still alive. The problem is, man, they've been kicking off, and it's like, I mean, I would have loved to have Eddie on, and that's really sad that, Eddie died, and because I worked with him on the For Uncardinal Knowledge album, and it would have been fun. I built him some stuff back then, and I would have loved to, history talked with him, but he's gone. So I'm trying to get to everybody, and like talk with them and say hi to them, and this is so awesome that you made the time, and I'm glad we're both healthy and doing okay. At some point, I'd love to come out to Oregon, because I know I've seen some outdoor pictures that you've published that it's gorgeous out where you're at.
You're welcome anytime, my friend.
I'll definitely take you up on that, because I'm going to, there's more and more now. I'm understanding what it is about hanging out and having fun more than just working, because that's all it seems like I do is work. So
it's all I do. I mean, I get up, I work, I watch a couple hours of Tube, go back to bed, get up, work. But I love it. You know, I mean, I can't call it. I still can't call it work. I mean, I love what I do, and I have my entire life. And
Yeah.
other
And you
than the
get,
oil field stuff, that was a little crappy. But other than that, I've loved my career and what I do, and
and that's,
can't
and
complain,
you,
man.
and you know, that's what's called winning, right?
Oh yeah, and I'm fortunate enough to have a wonderful partner and wife, Dana,
That's
who just
awesome.
supports me all the way and was saying, "Yeah, let's get out of LA, and yeah, I'll live in a trailer for a couple years while you build the place, and yeah, go ahead, be an artist and be a crazy man." And you know, it's cool. I mean, she has to live with all my my artistic psychosis, and
Well,
that makes it
it's
all
kind
worth
of,
a
it
lot
goes hand in
too. So,
hand with, it goes hand in hand with creativity. Sorry, that just,
yeah, unfortunately, it kind of does.
it does. I mean, if you're normal, what are you going to create, right? I'm sorry.
Facebook.
Exactly. Well, that's like we were early saying, to wrap this up, was, you know, why R&D at Fender, we were nuts. I
Yeah.
mean, the Friday lunches, remember those? I mean, it was that was one of the things, we hung out a lot, and it was fun because we liked working with each other. There wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going into work. It was like, I could hardly wait to get
We'd
there.
we'd walk to the Greek burger place,
That's right.
or
That's
that
right.
little Italian place that was Vietnamese run, which
That's
made no
right.
sense, but they made great pie. You know, it's like,
That's
yeah,
that. Oh, it was the only thing I didn't like, because there was a short period of time right when I got married that I lived right, like, close by. I had an apartment, but then I got a place, because she wanted to be by her mother, all the way up in Tahunga. So I used to drive every morning all the way down and drive all the way back. So
we won't even talk about that bumper sticker I
that's
contributed to her, but we both know
that's right. That's right.
that will go
Yes,
down in the annals of history.
that's true. But back in what I'm saying, it was fun, and that was another practical joke that was on me, but it was funny. And but anyway, you know, John, thank you so much, and
Thanks for asking me.
you know, oh, absolutely. I'm going to come see you, and definitely anybody that's watching this, is that his guitars are absolutely beautiful. There's a reason why people talk highly about them. But I will be talking to you soon,
All right, Lou.
and thank you so much, and stay healthy and all the, you know, normal stuff. And
Same to you, my friend.
I will
Great
talk to,
chat.
thank you so much.
Bye bye.